studies. Mame is involved in the community in many ways as the board chair of the Milwaukee Riverwalk District, vice chair of the Wisconsin Council for Local History, and as soccer coach to the oldest of her 3 children. Please join me in welcoming Mame to Rotary.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to share my screen here, and thank you for having me, Alex, in the introduction. All right. So here we are, and I am talking to you today from the archives of the Milwaukee County Historical Society here on Pear Marquette Park in downtown Milwaukee. The archives here is where people come to research and understand their past or research a company or a happening in Milwaukee. And I'll tell you a bit about that, but if you can see the kind of architecture, this building is absolutely stunning, and I'll show you a bit more of that. So the Milwaukee County Historical Society, just to bring it to its absolute base, was founded in 1935 to collect, preserve, and make available materials relating to Milwaukee County history. And we began that by collecting records from Milwaukee County. In fact, our first home was in the courthouse. We had the top floor museum there, and that's where it began. And it's amazing how things go in circles, but today, you know, they have a lot of room in the courthouse, and at the time, in the 60s, they did not. They were at their brim. So the Second Ward Savings Bank here was given to the society and the county to be the historical society, and they moved us on out to here, and this has been our home since. So we're lucky to have this beautiful building where we can not only collect and make available materials here in the library, but also show them through our exhibits and programs and such that I'll tell you about today. Over time, we've gone from that, founding mission to kind of this new vision statement, which is, the place to learn about and to celebrate Milwaukee. And the reason is because we want to be the place that people come, feel part of, and uncover stories and connect that to who they are today. And so that's been kind of our task for ourselves of recent, to be out and about and meeting people where they are, and be that organization where they can understand who we are today better because they understand the past and how we got to today. Right now, in recent years, these have really been kind of our tenets, what we're trying to do and how we're trying to serve the community. And when I say community, I really mean, the Milwaukee County and southeastern Wisconsin, but we serve people as, around the globe with research requests and such. I think our most common is from Germany, which we don't have to wonder why, when people are looking for their family records with our huge German population. But this is really kind of the focus of our work. So our collections are, I always like when people can see them up in person, and I say that because it's incredible. I mentioned that the Milwaukee County gives us their records, the government, and there's 12,000 boxes of records. So what you see here in this picture is just the tiniest smattering of what we have. There's 75,000 artifacts, more than 1 million photos, millions of documents. We can't even put a number on it. But what I can tell you is that everything has a number and a place, and this is how we find it. And I dove in here, and if you look, I went to the box number, or archivist did, and there is Rotary Club of Milwaukee files. So nothing escapes us. We have it. And really the way we get these documents and artifacts is by donations. So whether that's a company, a person, an organization, a church that wants to have their documents preserved and made available for years to come. They are the peoples here. They belong to the nonprofit organization. And so we make those available in perpetuity. And so here is what we have now. Let's dive in a little further. there is a photo from 1963, and I have it here in my hands, but I put there to be closer. And it looks like it was a December 2nd meeting of 1963. And I haven't been able to ID that room yet. But I'm sure this just looks very familiar to what the Rotary meetings look like today, right? So that's a little bit about our archives. Behind me right here is naturalization documents, which is very neat. If you had a family member or someone you want to research that was naturalized in Milwaukee, we have it here. I'd say circuit court records are one of our biggest things people research. And I think it's really important work because people can come here and find out more about who they are, get vital documents from it, and such. I like to tell this story. I was up in the library and this man said, "My grandmother was a liar." And you don't want to say, "Tell me more," but I was curious, and he kept talking. And he goes on to say that he come here, it was his retirement project was, I'm going to retire and come to Milwaukee and Wisconsin to research. We were his first stop. And he said he would have been here 10 years earlier if he would have known what he could uncover. But he actually uncovered through documents that his grandfather was not his grandfather. And we had it all here and didn't know that. And so that's not as unusual of a story as you think. But we also, more recently, about 5 years ago, they uncovered, it's pretty well thought out that people know what the Frank Lloyd Wright homes are and where they are, but they uncovered through some documents here that there is one in Shorewood that people didn't know about. So I'd say this is a resource that's endless, and John Emery, I'm sure, can attest to the fact that you can find yourself here for a few minutes and then a few hours goes by and you think, oh, I'll have to come back another day. All right, so where am I in a bigger sense? I am right behind the Love and the sign there, here in the 1913 historic bank building. And you can see it there on Pere Marquette Park. People don't always know this, but if you remember on City Hall until 1989, there was large letters that spelled out messages, and it was most famous for spelling out "Welcome to Milwaukee" in the opening credits of Laverne and Shirley. And all of those letters are with us now, and we repurpose them. So those are the actual letters that once hung on City Hall. There's 126 of them in punctuation. And actually one of our archivists, he was a master electrician for 30 years. And so this is kind of his passion project, is he rewires them and we tell a story. When Val Phillips passed, we had her name up in our windows. Penny Marshall, when she, obviously with the connection, when she did, we hit NBC Nightly News that night by having Penny in our window. Each Christmas we usually put up Joy. So you can find Joy at the Milwaukee County Historical Society, literally during the Christmas season, holiday season. So the next exhibit, which I'll tell you about, will garner a new word, but we have fun with kind of changing them out. Our other locations, and people don't always know this, is so there's the Historical Center, Trimborn Farm in Greendale, which is Milwaukee County Park's only historical park. And we're in an operating agreement with them where we operate the historic buildings and they do the park side of maintenance. And so that's a great place for events and programs that we have, weddings, and then education programs, as well as just enjoying the historic buildings. That land was actually originally the land where the EAA was founded, among other things, and it has the last remaining Wisconsin stone barn there. Adjacent to it is the Jeremiah Curtin House, which tells the story of an immigrant boy from Ireland. And that home has, I'd say, some of our oddest collection items, including a mummified cat in hand. And the farm in general has, I think the one we get the kids really grossed out by is cow's hairball, which is what they used to play baseball with. So the kids have this black ball that they're passing around, and then you just have to make sure someone's not passing it when you tell them what it is, or it drops on the floor. And then Kilbourne Townhouse, which is in Shorewood. It's that first white home right off of Capitol Drive into Estabrook Park. And it is the oldest remaining home in Milwaukee County. And I think I'm excited, actually. We got a new signage there last week, so you'll definitely be able to find it. So Milwaukee is one of our most recent programs, and if we can resume with Rotary meetings, you might find one on your way to Rotary right here in the picture. And it's a program presented by C.G. Schmidt, and it is there's 10 locations so far in Milwaukee. What you see is that viewfinder, just like you would at the Statue of Liberty and such, but you're not going to see a magnified view of the art museum. You're going to see, when you look inside, the same view, but an image from the past. So it's a way to, in the present, while you're viewing the present, see the past at the same time and kind of make those comparisons. Each one has a small history on them, and then a web page that goes with it with more photos, more information, and then curriculum for students and families to use to learn more. So these are 10 locations in Milwaukee right now, and it's a community supported program. So organizations, companies, people can support these, very similar to like a Bubbler bike model or such. And you get to choose the location and the photo. So our hope will be that this summer we'll add another group of locations. And over time we'll have themes in there, such as civil rights, women's history, industry, and water, to name a few. So if you want to know more information about that, you can check out Milwaukee.com. Here's just a few more shots of it. It just launched in August. And I'll tell you, it was supposed to launch in April, and obviously shelter at home happened. And it turns out we didn't know it at the time, but it's a great thing to do from a social distance perspective, because you can go out in Milwaukee, walk around, be outside, and enjoy these, and they're free to use. So we're announcing this week, so you guys are the first to know. Our new exhibit, which will launch at the end of next week, is Milwaukee's water history. And I say this one's a little different in that most often when I say history, I mean, we're going to look at the past up to today, but really this is such a hot topic. And so we're looking at it in a much bigger scale for this exhibit. We have youth programs that'll be a part of it. Series every Thursday night we'll have an online program for it, and it's really a chance for us to reach out into the community and unite people around this topic through talking about water in our past and how we'll handle it in the future. Milwaukee really is a hub for water technology, and we want to call attention to that. So one of the ways that we use the exhibit or the archives or the other things we've talked about is through our youth education. Here you see Mary Jo, our staff educator, and she's doing a program called Hands-On History. What that means is, rather than always waiting for people to come to us for a field trip, which we love, that's not always possible for students in schools. So we go to them in their classrooms and hands-on with actual artifacts. And obviously we can't do that right now, but as of the end of this month, we'll have served 1,000 students virtually with this program in the last couple months. And we're really pleased with our ability to do that. What you see here is them watching a historic toy, I think, go through. But we have 4 different themes: Native people, industry, water. I'm trying to remember maritime is another with the water. And we go out in the schools and we'll do this, but we can also provide it now virtually, like I mentioned. So I think it's a great program. 46% of the students we serve are free or reduced lunch, which is a way for us to gauge the need for these programs in those schools. For the adults, or really whoever's interested, since the pandemic began, we have a series of Thursday night presentations, and here is one on the socialist history of Milwaukee, and that was with Mike Goucher and Lynn Springer. Every Thursday we have a different one to show. It's free, it streams just like we are now on YouTube and Facebook. And In the coming weeks here, we have underwater archaeologists from the Wisconsin Historical Society who are going to be talking about their work. And we also have John Gerda giving his talk about his book, Gathering at the Waters, Milwaukee and Wisconsin. So we're excited about that. Moment at the Museum is small little bits of videos which highlight the exhibit. So if you can't make it down here, it allows you to see different artifacts and learn more about them. Finally, History at Home is our educator, Mary Jo, doing small 5 to 7 minute education bits for youth and students that are at home right now. And so that way they can still be learning about history. It's also something that teachers can program. So our community impact is right here. We're so thrilled. It's and growing. And actually, I should update the teachers. We just kind of got a new gauge on that. It's more like 300. We're supplying them with curriculum during this time. So we were able to not only offer programs, but we are able to get them primary resources to use while they're teaching from home, especially for the MPS district. So what is history without some trivia? So I hope you all will have some fun with me right now. Here is the question. What airport once occupied the current Summerfest grounds? Does anyone want to unmute and give a guess? What do you have, Steve?
Long Air Force Base?
Mm-mm.
No?
Mm-mm. Keith?
Maitland Field.
You're correct. There we go. Next one. What famed, oh, I can't see my screen right now. Temperance leader once said, if there's any place that is hell on earth, it is Milwaukee. Anyone? Keith had a smile like he knew. No? Here we go. Very Nation. And my third, which 2 Milwaukee Bucks players have been named the NBA's most valuable player? Anyone? No?
I think I know.
Oh, what do you have?
I think it's Giannis and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Correct. We were going to say bonus points if you can pronounce Giannis's last name correctly.
I think it's
All right, now this one is especially for you all. Anybody tell me who these young lads are?
Yeah, Charlie James is on the left.
Yes. Anyone else? That's correct. That's Charlie James on the left. No? All right, I'll tell you here. And this is where history gets creepy because I got this from, let's see if I can make sure I am in the screen here. The Rotary Club of Milwaukee, 1973, 1974, what do you call this, directory roster. And so those are 3 of the 4 members who were members at that time and are still members today. So that would have been their listing at the time. I'll tell you, I have a few other things to share. I've got the officers and membership listing from 1912, 1913 here. It's a pretty simple version. It's almost like, let's see if I can do it, you know, a listing. I've got the 13th district of Rotary. This is your 1933 conference brochure, and that was held here in Milwaukee in May of that year. And it has a whole brochure in it with all the information about the event. And then here, I'm going to point out a certain person. This is from 1919, and this is Mr. Goss, George Goss, or Moss, sorry. Can you see him? And
A little closer.
There he is. And there's his information, which is, I think, backwards. But the reason I bring him up is because his family or himself, I'm not positive, they donated his Rotary ribbons from way back then. And there's his name on it. So we have his Rotary ribbons, and we also have what appears to be his kind of from his conference and some medals. And they say his name. So these are the ones not in great shape, but so those are some Rotary items that we have. And I'll show you a few other cool things that we brought up, just a couple to give you an idea of the breadth of our artifacts. This is very cool. And this is the Schlitz Key to the city. And it was a key that was given to Mayor Hone when the Brown Bottle over at Schlitz Park opened in 1938. So that is, it's really heavy too, actually. And this is a new thing that we learned about. Now, sorry, it is a gun. It is in pristine, absolute perfect condition. And we noticed that it said to Lieutenant Carl Penner, 1st Cavalry Wing from Charles King. And you'd be like, okay, who are they? Who are they? Well, I'm going to tell you something. It was given to him. He was a Wisconsin National Guard member. And Charles King, who gave it to him, was a general during the Spanish-American War. He was the son of Civil War general and newspaper publisher Rufus King. Charles King's grandfather was the president of Columbia University, and his great-grandfather, Rufus King, signed the U.S. Constitution. So that is kind of cool. And we just thought that this really was a neat piece from that history, and we had to find that ourselves. So that's just some ideas. As far as George Moss goes, to just bring it back to that with these medals from Rotary, his father, George F. Moss, was co-founder of the Western States Envelope Company. Theodore Roosevelt was riding in George F. Moss's car when he was shot in Milwaukee. George B. Moss became president of the Envelope Company in 1940. How's that?
Pretty good.
Learned some new things today. And I'd say it's a question I'm often asked, what is the coolest item in my mind? I think there's too many to tell, but I think one of the coolest is it's way too big to show you. It's the only blue ribbons that Pabst ever won, but it was not for their beer. They never won a blue ribbon for their beer. It was for their draft horses in the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. So this is how you win yourself a beer at the bar. You say to someone, who won for draft horses in the World's Fair in 1904 in St. Louis? And almost anyone is going to say Anheuser-Busch. Or, yeah. And no, what am I trying to say? Yeah, with the horses. And you'll say, no, it was Pabst. In fact, Pabst draft horses were so good that people, other companies didn't show up to that competition because Pabst was just a blow out of the water on this. So we have those only, they're 10 ribbons because of the horses. We have them downstairs, and I think it's one of the coolest things because you learn so much different things through them, but also PBR is a great brand for Milwaukee. So to just close, how can you get involved with the Historical Society? And if you liked what you learned today, over here, I've got an example of one of our former exhibits that was music. We'll start water next week, the following week. And we invite you to come and see our new water exhibit. It's interactive, and it's really a broad topic. So we'll actually visit it this year and next year. If you like the historic photos I showed you and want to dive in, come to the research library. We're by appointment right now just to make sure we have room to keep people distance at this time and to follow the city orders. But it's $7 to research. An archivist helps you through the process. And I think it's the best deal in town, really. It's a lot of fun. My husband doesn't know it yet, unless he's watching, but I just found his grandfather, great-grandfather in the naturalization. We got a tip from his aunt. So it's really a neat thing to uncover. Here is a kayak tour. We do a history kayak tour starting in May throughout the summer with Milwaukee Kayak Company of Milwaukee's rivers. We have a few different tours, and last summer we kicked off bike tours. So you can enjoy the history of Milwaukee in either on wheels or on the water. And we actually come up onto Riverwalk for that, and you get to come into the society as well and see a few behind the scenes things as part of the kayak tour. And then finally, our education programs. This is a youth who was reflecting on who they are as Milwaukeeans today after learning about the past. And so if you want to get involved with our education programs, by all means, let us know. There's of course Milwaukee. I hope you will, at the minimum, look at the one the next time you are able to go to Rotary, and find the other 9 around if you enjoy it. And then finally, enjoy our historic sites. These are great things to do while there isn't that much going on, and there's a lot of history to be told. I think this is Trimborn Farm, and there's actually a historic lime kiln that you can go into and see on site. Well, thank you for having me, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Well, thank you very much, Mame. It was fascinating. I guess I'll just roll out a few questions. I guess my first question is, do you ever run out of space with a yearly intake? So then where does it all go? Do you have a secret warehouse or something like that?
Oh, I like the way you put that, secret warehouse. Makes this look fun. Yeah, it's actually, we have 2 warehouses and they add up to about 14,000 square feet of storage. We also have the entire basement level here. And then behind me, there's a whole space with kind of the most used documents. We do run out of space. It's a constant issue. It is not a fun thing to find funding for space, because who's like, oh, I just made a donation to store photos, like, so it is an issue. And one of the ways we deal with that is we become pickier. So before we start this call, I was telling you that if we had $1 for every wedding dress or piano that is offered to us, we would be in great shape. We do not take them all. And that is why. And so we really are trying to stay true to our collecting mission. It has to be Milwaukee County related and pretty unique. And I say that because if the ribbons I showed you, if we could have 700 of them, there's no point to that. We're not, unless they're different years and different reasons. So we try not to have too much replication as a result. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so when you give something to the county or to the County Historical Society, who technically owns it? Does the county still have a residual interest? Are you just like a totally separate entity?
We're an entirely separate entity. So we are our own nonprofit organization, and that organization owns the documents and artifacts that are part of the collection. We are different than the other county-related culturals in that way, because the Milwaukee Public Museum, Villa Terrace, Charles Ellis, as examples, their collections are owned by the county. In this case, these collections belong to the people of Milwaukee through this nonprofit.
Ties into some of Tony Franda's questions. What is the source of funding for the society? Do you have any funding from the county at all?
We do. So at this time, it's a constant fight every year, if I'm being honest, because we all know the situation the county's in, but we've really found some great support from them of recent. And so probably of our budget, about 20% comes from the county. About 25-30% we fundraise on our own. Another 10-20% comes from our events, programs, wedding event rentals. So kind of all adds up. And then others are grants, sponsorships, programs like Milwaukee, where we offset expenses.
Let's see. Do you want to talk about memberships and how many memberships?
Oh, are there?
How many members do you have?
Sure. I think we're about 750 right now. So there is a membership program. You get to use the library, our historic sites, and come to our museum for free. among other benefits. We also do a newsletter twice a year with different historical stories and such that people enjoy. And then for tours of the facility, it is not free to visit. It is $7. That includes your entire day. So if you want to be up in the library researching and then in our exhibit, it's all included. Tours of the collections, which is downstairs in the basement, we do a few times a year. It's hard because a lot of fragile going on there. So look for those. But as far as seeing our exhibits in the museum side of what we offer, that's we're open 9:30 to 5. Right now, Wednesdays and Saturdays. We'll expand once the city ordinance back to our normal. Once the city ordinance is lifted. For right now, we can have 10 people, so it's a little hard.
But if you remember, do you get a discount on the tours, or do you still have to pay the tour?
You mean to see the behind the scenes tour?
No, if you just want a tour, if you want to walk through, if you're a member, you just
It's included.
the $7 is waived then.
Mhm. Mhm.
I asked you previously about what are your secret parking spaces, because I always drive myself crazy trying to find the cheapest spot around there. So
Well, this is a big cheater. It's there right now anyway. On the south side of the building here, there's 4 spots with no meter. It's free.
no.
Yeah. So take advantage of that while that's there. Otherwise, it's probably the street parking right outside. Time your visit when there isn't a big event going on at the forum, and you're usually pretty okay. And right now, that's not really an issue. But let's see, the library now without change. I'm reading the. Oh, someone's teasing. Yes, I can email you, John, and yeah, so people have asked, about coming to find their history, and I think it can be daunting. If you know a name, if you know a street, if you know anything about your family, come armed with what you do know, and we'll help you through the rest. Sometimes someone will come in and say, I know my grandfather, here's his name, had a bakery on the south side, and we can use city directories and different, materials we have, try to kind of deduct and figure out which it was. What our development and events person, Morgan, she, for Christmas, they knew a little bit about her husband's family business, and they were able to come up with a photo of it for the grandfather and have that printed. So that was really special. So come with what you know. Don't think that, I'm never going to find anything, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I think one of the best things we have here is the service the archivists provide in helping you through that process of research.
So for instance, this is very random, but so for instance, at my house, I have a large framed advertisement from an early Ford dealer in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
And at what point does it become too big for you? And then where do you tell people to go with stuff like that?
Are you trying to figure out where the dealership is, or?
No, I'm trying to figure out who might better enjoy it than my basement.
Oh. So, what I told you about those artifacts, about Mr. Moss and about that pistol I showed you and such, we came to by going through our files and finding that ourselves. And I'd say the same. When we have a request of someone who said, I'd like this to go somewhere else, or we look into it, we figure out, does that make sense for us? Does it make sense for the UWM archives, the library, or perhaps the Milwaukee Public Museum? So we're able to help with that to make sure it's landing in the right place.
Yeah, because I was, it occurred to me, you might almost have a lending library of stuff where you could loan things out to law firms or whatever and have them hang them on their wall.
Yeah, we do that a little bit. In fact, I think the Godfrey and Kahn offices right now are full of, there's an area at least that is old Summerfest posters, but typically what they do is they do copies of them. We keep the original and we do a really nice reprint. We are in a few offices downtown, and we have some paintings around. I think right now there's like 8 or 9 museums that we're loaning to in Milwaukee or the area. So we're all about getting the artifacts out there and sharing them.
So just covering Steve's question, the entry fee, that's just $7 for no time limit, or with 10 people, do you kick people out and go, there's people waiting, so you better hurry up?
No, I think unfortunately the situation right now is that, and I know you've been downtown, it's pretty quiet.
Yeah.
So it doesn't include our staff, which is good. So no, for the most part, we're not finding traffic jams. The research library, we have spaced out seating, you can see behind me. And so we just ask for reservation to make sure you have your own table and your own time.
So a question from Mary Bolich, who wants to learn about her grandpa, who was nicknamed the grandfather of radio in Milwaukee.
Intriguing.
So can you use that as sort of an example of how you would start a research like that?
You know what, I can, hey, Kevin, could you join me for a second? I'll give you a real archivist here. Kevin is on a second tour of duty here at the Milwaukee County Historical Society. And this is what he does on a day-to-day basis. Kevin, they're asking, so Mary here said her grandfather was nicknamed the grandfather of radio in Milwaukee. And Mary, do you know his name? She's gonna unmute, I think. Daniel Gellerup. And so they're asking, how would you go about helping her find out something about that?
Well, I mean, we've got, well, do you know, was he connected with like TMJ or other radio station?
WTMJ?
Oh, TMJ. Because we've got journal communications collection that has some TMJ radio material, not a whole lot, but some. So there might be something in there. And, you know, we've got newspaper clippings about, you know, different individuals, that kind of thing. And we've got databases that we can search to see if we do have anything on that particular person. So there's a number of different ways that we can check to see if we might have some information about that.
But he was featured in Milwaukee Sentinel story many years ago. And so, yeah, as you see, he'd start asking you these questions and kind of say, well, I've got this, I've got that. Let's go and take a little search. Do you see John and Mary Emery there?
Hi, John.
So if that answers it, but Kevin is one of two archivists who's here each day, and very similar to how I'm sitting at this table and he's standing there, he would ask questions and help you find what you're looking for.
That's great. I think we've hit the limit of our questions, but thank you so much for coming. I'm sure we'll all think of questions as soon as we hang up, but we really appreciate it and hope to see you again.
Thank you for having me. And if there's anyone who has questions or wanted to learn more about anything, Alex and Michelle do have my contact information.
Thank you.
And Mame, this is Mary McCormick. Thank you. And, you know, your predecessors were members of the Rotary Club of Milwaukee. And so maybe it's time for you to think about membership in 2021 too.
You know, Tony and I were talking about that actually.
So we'll follow up with you.
All right, sounds great.
Someone mentioned that your picture will be in there 50 years from now then. So.
Yeah, you know, for some of the, think carefully about the picture you put in there because they last a long time.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great one.